Hi everyone, my name is Shelly and I'm going to be your facilitator for today. Today what we're going to do is go through the workbook for the learning material BSBITU402 or develop and use complex spreadsheets. Okay, so let's get right into it. All right, if you could go to page 12 of your manual or of your workbook, we'll start off with the knowledge assessment. So the first one would be it actually would ask you to consider that you're working for awesome landscapes. Remember in our discussion of the learning material, we used the company Awesome Landscapes. And then you would have to explain the organization's requirement for ergonomics by providing three key provisions from the staff handbook. You would have to refer to the ergonomic section of the staff handbook. So go to the website and then check it out. You just have to give at least three, all right? And then the next one would be explain the organization's requirements for work periods and breaks by providing three key provisions from the staff handbook. The next part, the third part, you would have to explain the organization's requirements for conservation techniques by providing three key provisions from the staff handbook. Remember, when we discussed this, ergonomics would refer to, how the equipment and the workers relate to each other. So check out if there are provisions about uh, chair height, work desk station height, about the required length or distance of the computer to the person working to the SBE worker. So you can check those out. Um, well, for the work periods and breaks, does the handbook give you a detail on how many breaks and what time are you supposed to take the break? Are you supposed to take a break from your typing job every 2 hours, 3 hours? So check the handbook. And then for the conservation techniques, does the company prefer equipment with higher energy star rating? Do you have like a power off time? Is there a policy in the workplace about switching off all equipment that uses electricity at a certain time or at the end of the day? So you can check those out. All right. Now, if you would look at the next part, um, so the information reflected in the table below will be used in a presentation on student drivers. So refer to this table, refer to the student driver data table um, in answering the questions that follow. All right, so you can see that there's a uh, sort of pink column, green, yellow, dark blue, purple. So look into that table and then answer the questions that follow. No? How do the colors affect the readability of the data? So select the best answer. The information in the chart may become redundant. It's hard to read the information in the chart. The audience will not like the colors that you used. So you will have to check that out and answer basing off on the table that's presented to you. How does attempting to fit all important data into a space affect the readability and presentation of data? So you would have to select all that apply. So the audience will be pleased to see all the information at once. It will be hard for the audience to read the information on the table. All data may not be treated equally in terms of importance. So, and then explain in no more than 2 sentences the advanced functions of spreadsheet software applications listed below. So remember in the discussion, we went through a couple of functions. So just check out these functions and then just briefly uh, explain the these functions that are mentioned. Sum if, VLOOKUP, COUNTIF. Okay. So let's check out the next ones. All right, so the next one for the practical assessment. Okay, so we have a case study that we have to go through. So Awesome Landscapes provides landscaping solutions to large-scale commercial and residential developments. You can find out more about Awesome Landscapes by accessing their website. And then pretend that you're the bookkeeper for Awesome Landscapes and you directly report to the business manager, Shar Azad. You have been tasked to follow safe work practices and create spreadsheets that will be used by the business managers for the organization. In creating these spreadsheets, you will need to follow Awesome Landscapes policies and procedures and guidelines for developing documents and use Microsoft Excel. All right, so you will be provided with templates and supplementary guide questions throughout this assessment to document evidence of your completion of the relevant unit requirement addressed in this task. Okay, so the workbook also uh, gives you the naming convention and how you will save your documents for submission. All right. So the first one, you would have to take a photo of yourself in a seated position in your workstation. The photo must show your office chair. It must be adjustable and provide back support. It should also show that you use appropriate, well-maintained equipment suitable for the tasks undertaken in the office, that your workstation is conducive to good posture, back in an upright position, arms and hands have free range of motion, feet can be comfortably planted on the floor, or if there is a footrest. And then frequently used items on your desk are in the optimum reach zone. And then when applicable, the monitor and the keyboard of the computer that at your workstation are centered to your body position when you're working on it. So you can ask a friend, a family, or a colleague to take the photo for you, or you can use selfie function and use self timer on your camera, or have a tripod to complete the task. You must appear in the photo, all right? And then save and submit the photo as indicated on the workbook. So you have to follow the naming convention. Um, and then the parts of the task. So BSBITU402 dash case study part 1 dash task 1 workstation, right? And then the next part, still another photo. You must take a photo of yourself demonstrating the following. So one energy conservation technique and one resource conservation technique. Um, so you can ask somebody else to take the photo for you or use the self timer functionality in your camera. All right, so the next part, for this part of the case study, you would be required to develop and use complex spreadsheets within the Awesome Landscape simulation. So you will do this by using Excel, okay? To proceed with the task, you need to access the installed Microsoft Excel software in your desktop or your computer. And then obviously you can either check the online help or the help function in Excel for some bit of tutorial, right? Okay, so you have to go through some bit of guidelines. You have to follow through on this. So you have to use the Awesome Landscape Style Guide and the prescribed templates. Unless specified otherwise, present important information in alphabetical or chronological order. In planning the files to be produced, the planning document will require you to specify your storage options for the outcome. So you must choose 2 storage locations for all the outputs of this practical assessment. So your file location must include both a location on your computer for later submission, along with a workbook, and an online storage system, like Dropbox or Google Drive or OneDrive. And but you must only choose one online storage system, right? And then when filling out planning documents, the title of output field in each planning document must list all the titles of the printouts for the particular task. For the number of pages to be printed, an acceptable or an approximate number is acceptable, all right? And then print documents on white A4 size paper. You may use more than one sheet of paper for one output so that all data in the document are printed. And then you would be required to source and use manuals, user documentation, and online help with spreadsheet design and production. Okay. And then you're required to apply work organization strategies throughout the conduct of all these tasks. All right. And then you would have to submit documents along with the workbook using the prescribed file name convention for each task. Okay. So check out the deadline. So for task 3, for the quality audit report, must be completed not more than 7 working days after you completed task 1. You have all the other deadlines for the succeeding tasks. Okay. Now for task 1, it would be a role play activity. This activity will actually require you to talk to the business manager, Azad, to find out the specific spreadsheets that you need to create. To complete this part of the assessment, you will need access to one volunteer who will role play as your business manager, a video camera or mobile phone with video or audio recording capability. Okay. You before you proceed with the role play, you must read the instructions so that you know what exactly to do. So one, you have to gather your volunteer and role play the meeting where you will ask about the spreadsheets you are tasked to create. In the meeting, you must be able to know the list of spreadsheets you are asked to create, ask about relevant sources of data. You should also be able to ask about the availability of related manuals or user guidelines that can be used to prepare spreadsheets. And then you need to ask about the relevant style guide or formats using templates, if there's any. And then in the meeting, when asked about your assignment, you will ask about the specifics of the spreadsheets regarding type, the relevant sources of information, relevant style guide, all right? So you can use the following guide questions. So what are the spreadsheets that are needed by the business managers? Are they macro embedded or not? Where can I source the data to be used in the spreadsheets? You can also ask, is there a manual or guide I can use to facilitate the preparation of the spreadsheets? Or are there any style guides or formats, including templates, that I should use to prepare the spreadsheets? Okay. And then because it's a role play, there's some bit of discussion guide also for the volunteer. So in the meeting, when asked about the needed spreadsheets, the volunteer should say that the types of spreadsheets are the following: sales summary, quality audit report, spreadsheet template, financial statements like balance sheet, trading statements, financial ratios, and graphs. And then when asked about the relevant sources of information, point out to the past for the tasks for this, task 1, task 2, and then task 3. And then, if there are manuals, when asked about the manuals or guides, uh, just ask the candidate or to access user guides available in the internet. So basically, you and your volunteer would have to go through this discussion guide so that you're guided on how to do the role play. All right, and then again, to demonstrate your completion of this activity, the meeting must be recorded. So save the recorded video using this particular file name, BSBITU402 role play activity. All right, and then the video submission must not be longer than 5 minutes in length. Okay, so to keep the discussion or keep the role play within 5 minutes. Okay, there's no specific script to be followed in the role play activity. However, you must be able to demonstrate all the steps that we've already mentioned earlier, like what are the questions you need to ask, what are the things that's expected or the outcome for that particular role play. Okay, and then there's a checklist. The assessors will use this, but basically this is how you will be graded. Okay, so did you state your name and the unit subject you're taking? Were you able to determine the needed spreadsheets by the business manager and their specification? Did you ask about the relevant sources of information? Did you ask about the relevant style guides or format? And did you ask about the availability of manuals or user guides that can facilitate? So basically, this is already what we've discussed in the things that you need to review before you actually do the role play, right? So for task 2, this would be the sales summary. So for this one, okay, let's see. Okay, so for the sales summary part, the Awesome Landscape is reviewing their national sales data over a 3-month period. So Awesome is using Microsoft Excel software to organize and summarize their data. So you are required to complete the sales summary by creating a pivot You need to download the file by getting into the link that's indicated there. All right. But before you proceed with creating the pivot table, you need to use a planning document to analyze and evaluate the task and guide you through creating your pivot table. Okay. The template is provided on the appendix section of the workbook, so you can check it out. You also might want to research on how to create a pivot table using an online or actual manual or user guide. So we showed you in the learning material how to create or insert a pivot table or pivot chart. And then you have to save and submit the completed planning document along with the workbook as shown, as indicated on your learner assessment workbook. All right. So for example, for the planning document, you'd have to fill this up. So for example, the name obviously would be your name. Position, for example, in the case study, you're supposed to be the bookkeeper, right? And the required output is sales summary. And then assessor would be your assessor's full name. And then the due date is whenever it's due, because it's due today, or the date today. And then software to be used, we said Microsoft Excel. And then you have to tick here what will be the file storage. So you must, so you have to choose two, right? So computer or other hardware. So you tick that off. And then online storage, but you have to indicate what type of online storage. So for example, you're using, um, Google Drive. So you have to type that in. All right. And then how you would present this, this would be submission along with the completed workbook. And then what are the required awesome landscape resources, the style guide, and summary data. Summary data for the sales. And then if you use the manual or user guide, your access that you use, you have to put in here the link. And then what are the output details? So the title of the output would be, okay, so it has to be some awesome landscape sales figures as of June 2016. So this part, sales figures as of June 2016 is required, right? So just make sure that you title accordingly. The number of files required, 1, and then whatever the number of pages. So if there's, for example, whatever the approximation number, so it could be 2 or 5, so you could just like 2. And will this file use macros? If it uses macros, then you can tick yes. Otherwise, you can tick no. All right. And then will automation make work more efficient? If yes, what functions can be automated? So if no, then you just tick no. So if yes, for example, you want to automate the parts where you want to organize by data by area, product, and month. So you can type that in, organizing data by area, product, and or month. All right. And then other comments. Not really required, but if you have, then put it in there. So after planning, proceed to create the pivot table in the tab pivot table within the Excel file you previously downloaded by taking note of the following. So the sales totals must be clearly summarized by area, product, and month. Format the pivot table according to the awesome landscape style guide. And you are at the liberty to, as to which categories will be used as rows and columns. You have to arrange your labels either alphabetically or chronologically. And the title would be of the pivot table. You would have to add this sales figure as of June 2016. And save the file locally to your computer as this, how the naming convention is given here on the workbook. Okay. And then you have to upload the file you saved into the online storage you chose. So earlier we said that we're going to use Google Drive. So you have to upload the file there. All right. And then you have to provide a link to the uploaded document and ensure that it's, it's available or accessible by your assessor, right? And then you have to print this out on A4. Okay. And then check the timelines. Remember earlier we gave you the due dates or the deadlines for each task. So just make sure that you're within those timelines, all right? Okay. So the next part would be the quality audit report. So Awesome Landscapes is partway through the project to build the Cascade Peak Walkway, a 2,330-meter boardwalk through the Cascade Peak National Park for the Cascade Peak Shire Council. Right, so as part of their quality control obligations, they are required to conduct a quality audit of the first section on the boardwalk and prepare a quality audit report for the council. So the business managers receive the quality audit data and needs the following additional statistical data analysis to assist in producing the quality audit report. So check out the list. So it has the average height for each handrail, standard deviation for the height, minimum heights for each handrail, maximum heights for each handrail and beyond the 1100-meter section. Number of instances the height of each handrail is outside of the height range. Average gap between the slats and over the 1100-meter section, standard deviation for the gap, minimum slat gaps, maximum, the number of instances where the gap between the slats falls outside of the gap range. You need to use 3 decimal places, and you must use, obviously, Excel appropriate functions in creating this report, okay? So download the spreadsheets. Download the following documents in order to create the spreadsheets, all right? So when you click the link, the data will look like this when you download the data. So it will give you the audit measurements of walkway. So this is the type of data that you will be working with, all right? So we can just close that out. Basically, that's what we need to do. And then, just click on the other links to download the data that you are required to have, okay? And again, you have to complete, before you proceed with completing the quality audit report, you need to use a planning document to analyze and evaluate the tasks and guide you through the process, all right? Which is similar to the one that we already used earlier. So just fill it up. It's how you would do it, or how you would have done it earlier, okay? Then after the preparation of the planning document, you have to refer to the documents that we saw earlier that you downloaded for the data. So the walkway audit measurements, the walkway meeting minutes, all right, for you to complete the quality audit report. Now, to compute requirements, you would have to use the appropriate Excel functions. You need to analyze which function is appropriate to use the computation for the specific requirement. So what are some of these things? Average. So what are some of the functions that you will be using? Average if, standard deviation, min, max, countif, and countifs, okay? So on the same tab where you have the worksheet, for the Cascade Peak Walkway audit measurements, you have to construct a table for the additional requirements that's been asked from you. And then provide the figures for the second column by using a different Excel function as appropriate to the requirement. So whatever function is appropriate, please use that. And remember to take note of the data and the audit measurements of the walkway and the meeting minutes. No? If it has decimal places, please use up to 3 decimal places. So, okay. Should look something like this. All right. Make sure the table is properly labeled as quality audit report. Then you have to format the table according to the Awesome Landscapes style guide. Okay. And then it gives you how you would save information, how you would save the file, and the naming convention. Okay, and how you will print it, and when it is expected from you. So because your assessor will take note of the date and time when the document was last modified, so ensure that you complete task 3 quality audit report not more than 7 working days after we've started, or after this date. So after you have completed task 1 sales summary, All right. For the next tasks, task 4, 5, 6, and 7, it must be completed not more than 10 working days after completing the quality audit report. All right. Okay. So for the quality audit report, if you get the data, you should see that the average height for each handrail measuring over 1060 mm is 1073.287 mm. What would be the standard deviation? Um, it would be about 17.9. Maximum height for the handrails, it would be 1004. So when you put this in Excel, there has to be like um, table, right? And this is where you put in the numbers. So maximum height. So the minimum is 1004. The maximum height is 1088. And then again, you will be able to do this by using the min or max function. And then just fill this up based off on that, on using the data that you have on the downloaded data file for Cascade Walkway. All right. So you just have to fill it in with the numbers. Obviously, you'd have to run the functions to be able to get the answers. Okay. Task 4 would be for the spreadsheet. Again, you have to use a planning document before you start with this. Uh, you would be required to complete a series of tasks to produce a financial summary using the .csv file that the company has provided, which is the combined balance sheet and profit and loss statement .csv. Okay. And then before you go to that, again, you have to use a planning document to analyze and evaluate the task and guide you, excuse me, through the process. All right. Okay. So open the BSBITU402 combined balance sheet and profit and loss statement file. You have downloaded, and create a spreadsheet template by following the instructions below. Okay. So open a new Excel workbook, create a macro to import raw data from the .csv file to a new workbook. Use the macro created to import Awesome Landscapes combined balance sheet and profit loss statement. And you should find this in the first sheet, and then you have to rename sheet 1 to combined BS and the PL statement. And then you have to create another macro for your new tables to automatically follow a design template that's clear and easy to read. Okay, your output, it must be an MS Excel micro-enabled file with the extension .xlsm. Okay. So, and then once you're finished, you need to save your file like this: BSBITU402 tasks 4 to 7 financial summary. Okay. The next part would be for the balance sheet. All right. So for the balance sheet, you need, using the same file that you created in task 4, create a second tab and name it balance sheet. Okay. On the tab, using custom cell formats, where necessary, you need to produce a 4-year balance sheet. Okay. So you need to automate this sheet using appropriate formula to automatically populate the cells from the corresponding raw data imported into sheet 1, which is part of task 4. Okay. From this .csv file that was provided to you. You are to include all data from the rows of cash and cash equivalents up to retained earnings or accumulated losses. Okay, so use the following definition to produce the formulas for calculating the following. So for example, for total current assets, you have to add up cash and cash equivalents plus account receivables plus inventory plus work in progress. Okay, for the non-current assets, it would be plant and equipment plus plant and equipment accumulated depreciation. For the total assets, total current assets plus total non-current assets. For the for the total current liabilities, it would be your accounts payable plus bank overdraft plus GST payable. Okay. And liabilities you have there, net assets, total equity, net profit. So the net profit that would be computed in task 5. Okay. So again, make sure the table in the sheet is appropriately labeled or properly labeled as Awesome Landscapes Limited Balance Sheet. All right. Okay. So what's an example? Let's see. All right. So for example, let's try that. So we want to, all right. So for example, we're trying to find out total current assets, right? So assets, current assets. I'm typing it in because I haven't downloaded the file. Cash and cash equivalents. Account receivable. Inventory. Work in progress. Okay, and then the total current assets. So the numbers would show, I think, would show as just an example, 1.3, 1.36 mil. Let's use that. 2.1 mil. So you have to just format that so that it follows all the same format. And then 273,000. Sorry. All right, so and then your work in progress is about 1.8 mil. And then you use the function sum, right? So you have to use Excel function to be able to do that. Really. Josie. All right, so it should look like this, and you should use the sum function, okay? So that's the example. All right. So you must be able to satisfy the following requirements. There is a title above the chart. The title of the chart is balance sheet, and the chart only uses the colors white and green in accordance with the Awesome Landscapes style guide. So if you can just, we will go back here, select the green as appropriate. I think the green looked like this, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but just check, just double check it. Okay. All right, so something to that effect, all right? Okay. And then for the trading statement, so when you do your, okay, give me a second. So when you do your balance sheet, the statement of financial position should show something like this, all right? I'll show you. It should be somewhere something like this, okay? Where you have the equivalent, the ones that we were typing in earlier. It should look like this, all right? So for this, you would have to put the sum function, and then plus or sum addition functionality or sum function in Excel for liabilities, for owner's equity. You have to follow the formula as mentioned earlier. All right. Okay. So for the trading statement, it's pretty much the same. But this one you have to produce a 4-year trading statement. Okay, so total sales equals cash sales plus credit sales. Gross profit would be equal to total sales minus cost of goods sold. Net profit would be gross profit minus expenses. Okay, And again, include the net profit values only in the balance sheet created in task 5. Okay, so let's try to do that. So for example, you need to automate some of the functions, all right? So for example, let's use the table that we have here. All right, so this one's for the assets. Now let's try for cost of goods sold. Okay. So gross profit. And then expenses. So you have to follow like whatever the template is requiring you. And then net profit. Okay, so let's follow the format. Okay, so cost of 3.1 M, 3, and then gross profit 7,983. Okay, and then your expenses would be 6.8 M. So what would be your net profit? So net profit, again, like we mentioned earlier, net profit is gross profit minus expenses. So let's just follow the format so that we're not confused. So for the net profit, it said gross profit. So you can do sum. Well, technically, you can just go to the gross profit line minus expenses, and that would give you the net profit. Or you could also go the sum route, which would essentially give you the same answer, all right? So either sum and then the arguments that are required in the function, or you can just directly indicate the cells that you're going to add or subtract to, all right? So it's there. Now, again, more definitions to produce the formula for calculating. Gross profit ratio would be gross profit over total sales. Net profit ratio would be net profit over total sales. Debt to equity ratio would be total liabilities over total equity. Current ratio would be total current assets divided by total current liability. And then working capital turnover would be cost of goods sold divided by total current assets minus total current liabilities. Okay. Again, just use up to 3 decimal places only. All right. So what is expected from you when so you must use the data and then just compute for all of these functions or for all of these definitions of terms, all right? Again, you would have to follow the naming convention as indicated on your workbook. Um, and then you must create charts to represent the following data, like profit ratio. It has to both gross and net profit must be displayed on the same chart. Debt to equity ratio, include a linear trend line. Current ratio also include a linear trend line, and then working capital turnover. Okay, and then it gives you how to save the file. Okay, so what is so the data from all the calculations, you would have something like this. Okay, so this would be the data, and then you would have to put that on charts. Okay, as required. So if you're required to have a linear trend data line, then or linear if you're required to have a linear trend line, then please have that or please create that. Include that on the graph or the chart you are going to be creating. Okay. So now all of these parts, tasks 1 to 7, you would have complete after you've completed that. That means that you have completed all the spreadsheets for the business manager. So you need to send an email to Shar Azad advising him of this. Your email must specifically include a statement advising Shar that you have completed all the spreadsheets, a statement outlining the spreadsheets that you have completed, so which is the sales summary, quality audit report, and financial summary, and a statement including links to access these files, okay? And then write your email in the spaces provided below, okay? So just quickly going back, like we mentioned earlier, once you get the data, this data, you have to put it in a chart. So we would kind of be looking into something like this, where you have a, okay, hold on. So if you put this in a chart form, then we'd be looking at this. If you're going to compare gross profit ratio versus net profit ratio, that's a linear trend line, okay? Or if you're looking into the debt to equity ratio, we can also be looking at something, hold on, something like this. Oops, sorry, hold on. All right, so something like this for the comparison of the debt to equity ratio. All right, so again, the linear trend line, if it's asked from you, you have to include that, okay? All right, so you have to write the email advising the business manager that you've completed everything, okay? And then in your email, just fill it up. Subject obviously would be any appropriate subject heading. And then on the message or on the email part of self, you must be able to write an email to Shar Azad advising him that you have completed all the spreadsheets for the business manager. It depends on how you write it, but your email should include a statement advising Shar that um, you've completed all of the spreadsheets, a statement outlining the spreadsheets that you have completed, which is the sales summary, quality audit report, financial summary, and a statement that includes the links to access the files. So for example, you can type here, this would be an example email, but it depends totally on how you do it. So good day, Shar. As per request, I have completed the following spreadsheets for the business managers. So you have sales summary, quality audit report, financial statement, or financial summary rather. Okay, they can be accessed through, and then you provide the link here, https blah blah. Just provide the link. Provide link here. Something to that effect. Okay, and then thank you. So best regards, your name. So Shelly for this example. Shelly Adams. All right. So that's pretty much it. Okay. Now, so this means that you have just completed all the tasks required of you. So you need to list at least 2 work organization strategies that you have applied in the conduct of the tasks in the case study in any of this area. So for productivity, quality, costs, personnel, communication, workplace health and safety, environment. Okay. So for example, some of the possible answers, again, this would vary depending, of course, on what are the organization strategies that you applied. So some, for example, if you, for the communication, you were able to clearly define what is asked of you regarding the assignment because you prepared, like the preparation of spreadsheets through talking with business manager and reporting about the completion of the spreadsheet through an email. For workplace health and safety, you organize your personal work environment in accordance with ergonomic requirements. Okay, so you just have to put in like 2. Okay. Okay, so this is the workbook checklist. What are the items needed from you to be able to complete this? Okay, so when you have completed assessing answering the assessment workbook, you need to review your submission against the checklist below. Okay, So you have to have the knowledge assessment, the practical assessment, part one, part two, and all the tasks that came after it, and then the conclusion. And then if you have completed all of these, please be sure that you're ready to submit the workbook. Please ensure that you submit the following documents. Obviously, the workbook that you've completed, the video, uh, task one, task two, task up until task six. So what are the required documents from you? And please be sure to follow the naming conventions as indicated on your workbook, okay? You must complete or you must achieve a satisfactory result in all the assessment tasks to be awarded competent for this particular unit, all right? So you have on the workbook the assessment on the appendix to the planning document. You would remember that before you are able to do some of the tasks mentioned earlier, you would have to fill up a planning document. All right. So that's pretty much it for this topic for developing and using of complex spreadsheets. So answer the workbook, go through the files, download the data needed, and then complete it as best as you can. Again, obviously applying the learnings that you or the information or knowledge that you received from the discussion of the learning material. All right. And then once you're done, please check your documents against the checklist and then submit it as required to your assessors. All right. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the day. Bye.